What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again. Still a little bit under the weather, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about what could be the only lifeline, well, lifelines, that the Curse of Osiris and Destiny 2 by and large have in the upcoming update. So, 'twas the day before the Curse of Osiris. In the Destiny 2 State of the Game update, Bungie didn't really give us core players much to look forward to in the Curse of Osiris in regards to sweeping system changes. If you're one of those people who, for whatever reason, thought loot was too hard to get outside of the duplicate spamming, then I guess there's something here for you, but if you're looking for crunch and not fluff, the State of the Game update provided nothing for you. If you don't like the state of Destiny 2 now, 9 out of 10, you won't like it in 2 weeks either. Unless, 1. This new raid is one of the best raiding experiences we've ever seen in Destiny. And I mean like ever, since the Vault of Glass. Currently, the Leviathan raid provides this sort of nonsensical, mechanical heavy challenge that often sometimes, even if you're doing everything perfectly, seems more based on RNG luck than a team coming together to complete a task. And this comes in a bunch of forms. Did somebody get physics damaged into oblivion because reasons? Did the dog get stuck on the geometry and turn around just as you were walking by even though it shouldn't have? Did the arrows on the gauntlet not activate when shot? You know, just any number of things that can and will happen based on the fact that, well, Destiny is a peer-to-peer game and doesn't have dedicated servers. I think a more winning formula is the kind of traditional Vault of Glass, do X to damage boss encounter. And there's a few reasons for this. 1, I can explain to someone who has never played the Vault of Glass how to play the Vault of Glass in a few short sentences for each encounter. Like, shoot Oracle, wait for Templar's shield to be taken down, then DPS Templar. For encounters like the dogs or the gauntlet, it's either this long, in-depth explanation on which strategy we'll be utilizing today, and taking the next 5 minutes to lay out that strategy to the new person, and just hoping that the new person kinda gets what's going on. Or with the dogs, it's like, just shut up and follow me. And this has kind of been a problem with the more mechanic-heavy raids of Destiny, where they're not as intuitive as they could be. So a return to the more intuitive type of raid could be a real lifesaver for the game, because a more easier to understand raid, not necessarily an easier to complete raid, opens up a lot of avenues for things like raid carries, Twitch streams, raid content on YouTube, and things like that. There can be complexity in simplicity. Just because something is intuitive and easy to understand, easier to wrap your head around, doesn't mean it's easy to execute. And I think the heavy reliance on mechanics can not only be frustrating because it takes so much time to explain to someone, but it can be difficult for a lot of people to compartmentalize and execute. This is a failing on Bungie's part when they design these encounters, because these encounters are not difficult. None of them really are. But they do rely on the idea that the more moving parts there are, the more that can go wrong. This, of course, is used to create artificial difficulty and punish the group for the failing of one player, instead of creating an actual challenging encounter. So, even if the raid is this kind of short, quick thing that you can do, but it's quality, and it has amazing rewards that I want to chase after, then I can see people grinding this out and using it to entertain other people until DLC 2, which will help sustain the PvE side of YouTube and Twitch and other communities like that. Destiny 1 didn't have all that much going for it year 1 either. What it did have was the Vault of Glass. And even on some levels, Crota's End. As much of a glorified strike as that was, it was still entertaining to watch people come up with different, difficult, self-imposed challenges in order to clear it. If Destiny can get back to not only enjoyable to play raids, but enjoyable to watch raids, then I think that'll go a long way to helping support the game for the time being, regardless if it seems like it might be another Cabal raid with hopefully some Vex thrown in for flavor. Because, get it, it's the World Eater, and it's eating Nessus, and there's Vex on Nessus, so they would be like thrown in for flavor because it's eating them. Get it? Okay, I'm just gonna move on to point 2 now. So there are a lot of issues with the Crucible right now, and I think even just saying there's a lot of issues with the Crucible is kind of understating how many issues there really are with the Crucible, but I digress. A lot of this could be helped if the Crucible returned to 3v3, 6v6, or Rumble playlists, or even into just separate playlists altogether. The revision of the weapon system back to the Destiny 1 weapon system would also be a huge help, but if we were going to see something like that, we would have seen it in the update. So, what can they change that will fix the Crucible? I think one of the biggest things that they could do in this Sandbox update is to buff player abilities. Buff melee damage back to 2 hits, buff ability recharge rates, buff super recharge rates, and nerf pulse grenades while we're at it. I can understand the want to have ability damage lowered to avoid death to ability spam, but name another game where it takes a quarter of a match to get your grenade back. I think ability damage where it's at is just fine. I would just like to have my abilities back more often. Even if that means taking a bit of a nerf to the damage of some of the abilities, like pulse grenades. But, I mean, let's be honest. Not having your abilities, like your grenades, really does suck, especially when you're not playing a class that spawns with 2 of the best grenades in the game. On top of buffing player abilities and melee damage, what they could do is do away with armor stats and unify recovery and resilience across the board on all classes until a better solution is found. They desperately, and I mean desperately, need to remove any hidden mechanics or barriers that prevent weapons from functioning properly, or add an RNG element to the way they do function. Most notoriously, this comes in the form of bloom on hand cannons. On top of removing RNG from weapons, they need to remove any sandbagging mechanics. Mechanics that limit skilled players' effectiveness in combat. In Destiny 2, for example, players are penalized for jumping with huge decreases to in-air accuracy. This keeps fights more grounded as jumping and shooting effectively is a skill, which creates a skill gap between players, which Bungie is trying to eliminate by punishing better players for being better players. Another way to increase the skill gap is to decrease the lethality on spray and play weapon archetypes, SMGs and assault rifles, and increasing the lethality on the more skill-based weapons like pulse rifles, hand cannons, and scout rifles outside the Mida class. Automatic weapons by no means should be garbage. However, the skill ceiling for automatic weapons is lower than something like a pulse rifle or a hand cannon. Lower skilled weapons shouldn't necessarily be useless, but they should struggle to compete against more skill-based weapons. And I honestly think this could be achieved by taking a few damage points off each round and reducing the overall range on top of starting damage fall off a lot sooner. There's absolutely no reason a weapon like Uriel's Gift should be doing close to max damage halfway across the map. And yet, hand cannons have horrendous damage fall off outside the first 5 feet. And if the inevitable result of this is the return of the 3-shot hand cannon, the 3-shot pulse rifle, and the 3-shot scout rifle, I don't think anybody's really going to complain at this point. High caliber rounds needs to be dialed in more or removed completely. Maybe this is just a me thing, but I don't like winning one-on-one gunfights because I outflinched someone, not because I outplayed them. It's one of those things that you know you should have lost a gunfight, but you got lucky because you disrupted their shots. They missed not because you were a better shot, not because they were a worse shot, but because RNG. In fact, you'll notice that a lot of the things I would like to see changed removes hidden aspects or RNG aspects from the multiplayer, and seeks to increase the lethality of the player and raise the skill ceiling. Now, I don't want Call of Duty time to kills, but I do think something between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 is more than appropriate. And honestly, I think if we see changes along these lines, maybe not necessarily these exact changes, but changes to PvP that increase player lethality, remove RNG and hidden sandbag mechanics, if we see a raising of the skill ceiling, we'll have a much better PvP than we have now. It won't be 100% fixed, it won't even really save Destiny 2, but it will be far more enjoyable. But like always, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and like always, stay frosty.